Davis here with you on Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network. We are back after a brief interruption. Damn snow. Damn snow. Apparently, NASNHQ needs to move to an area less affected by winter storms. Did this one have a name, by the way? What is this? We're naming winter storms now. Did this one have a name? I have to look this up. Because the winter storm names are fantastic. Maximus, says producer Trevor. Maximus. That would be great if that was the case. Yeah, so we're back on the air. It is a Friday. There's not only because we missed yesterday, but just in general, there's a lot to cover today. We're going to get into the Miami situation. We sort of covered it as it was happening on Wednesday. Today, we're going to talk to Franco Panizo from MLSsoccer.com and Soccer by Ivis, and he is a Miami native. He will have all of that perspective we're looking for on whether or not Miami can support an MLS franchise. Lots of questions because, and maybe I'll get into this a little bit more later, but what we got on Wednesday wasn't much. It was basically a campaign event. It was a stump speech. It was, hey, we want to do this thing, and I'm exercising my option. So support me. That's what I got out of it. And it seems to me, I'm just going to leave this here, it seems to me MLS may be being led around by the tail a little bit by David Beckham and his people. I know Don Garber was there, but this is a first. Don Garber shows up to show support for David Beckham and announce that he's exercising his option when nothing is really out there yet. There's no stadium site selected. There's no name. There's nothing concrete happening, and MLS has yet to actually grant the franchise to Beckham. This is all ahead of any franchise being awarded. But I still say it's going to happen. I still believe it's going to happen. Beckham says he's essentially been promised a downtown stadium site. Does that mean anything in Miami? These are the questions. And we'll talk to somebody who knows Miami to give us a perspective on it. Franco Panizo, who was there. In the meantime, other questions, concerns, comments, stories you want to talk about, hit us up on Twitter at Soccer Morning. Give us a phone call. 347-756-6276. I'm going to start. I'm going to move on from Miami, and we'll get back to that, obviously. But I'm going to go with this breaking news. Breaking news, everybody. Sepp Blatter is going to run for FIFA president in 2015. Yeah, I know you're shocked. You're shocked. Hasn't he been saying that maybe he won't run? Haven't we heard about other candidates? Jerome Champagne, thank you for stepping up and giving us your sin bin ideas and talking about instant replay. Thank you for your participation. Go sit down. Your services are no longer needed. Jerome was always a creature of Sepp Blatter, from what I understood. And he even said, if Blatter runs, I'm probably not running. Blatter's going to run, guys. He's hinting at it. Hinting means he's running. And when he runs, he wins because Sepp Blatter's got the power base. Whatever you think about changing interests in the world of international football, whatever you think about UEFA, whatever you make of Michel Platini, the fact of the matter is that when it comes to getting the votes, Sepp Blatter's got everybody in his pocket that he needs. He's got the votes. So welcome. Just go ahead, prepare yourself for another term with Sepp Blatter as the leader of FIFA. This is the guy, just to remind you, in case you forgot, maybe you didn't, but just to remind you, this is the guy who once said women players should be playing in tighter shorts. Thanks a lot, Sepp. This is the guy who has reigned over an era of unprecedented corruption throughout world football, some of it FIFA, much of it farther down the ladder locally. Does he take any responsibility? Nope. This is the guy who so desperately wants to have a legacy and perhaps win a Nobel Peace Prize that his time in charge has seen a spate of World Cups that are going to leave just a trail of disaster in corruption, wasted funds, white elephant stadiums. There you go. Sepp Blatter. This is the guy who said, when asked about the laws on the books in Qatar in 2022 and how are gay fans supposed to go and enjoy that World Cup, he said, they should just refrain from sexual activity. This is the guy who fostered the environment, who created the situation, the atmosphere that led to, whether he voted for them or not, that led to Russia and Qatar getting World Cups in 2018 and 2022. This is the guy who said, when questions of racism have popped up around the world, this is the guy who said, well, racism can be forgiven with a handshake. Yeah, that'll help, Sepp. That'll make it all better. Yeah, let's not deal with the core issues. And he didn't until forced to, until it became obvious that racist behavior on the part of fans is a major concern around the world. Until then, he was, handshakes, guys. Handshakes. This is the guy who has fumbled repeatedly. I was a little early on that. Premature, as I imagine Sepp probably is. This is the guy who has fumbled repeatedly the question of when the 2022 World Cup will be played. Is it going to be played in June and July? Is it going to be played in November and December? Is it going to be played in January? When is it going to be played, Sepp? If we have to ask, doesn't that mean something about that particular World Cup and the wisdom of putting it in that particular country? I don't care if you didn't vote for it. I don't care if you voted for the United States. This is on your watch. You're responsible. Buck stops there. Desk of Sepp Blatter. Zurich, Switzerland. This is the guy that's going to lead again because no one has the balls to challenge the guy. No one legitimate does. I mean, no offense to Grant Wall, who made a run of it. No offense to Mohammed bin Hammam, who was taken out, essentially. Was he guilty of something? I'm sure he was. They all are. But that's the alternative right now. That's what we get. That's what we get. Because it is a closed shop. FIFA is a closed shop. Challenge Sepp Blatter, and you will be wasted. He will waste you by whatever means necessary. I think that's pretty clear. In fact, from what I know about Jeffrey Webb, who is the current president of CONCACAF, he seems like a decent guy. He's made some changes. Things are getting better in CONCACAF. This is no longer the era of Jack Warner here. And his name has been put out there as a possible FIFA presidential candidate. Don't run, Jeffrey. Don't run. Because I believe you're a decent guy who has good intentions, and I don't want to see you dragged through the mud because Sepp Blatter is not going to mess around. He's going to consolidate that power base. He's going to put money in the right hands, and he'll be FIFA president. And it's very possible that you'll be taken out. That's my advice to Jeffrey Webb, who I've spoken to, who comes across as an earnest, interested, caring individual about this sport in this part of the world. If he really is a candidate, please don't run, Jeffrey. Just don't do it. Let's take a break. When we come back, Franco Panizo, MLSsoccer.com and Soccer by Ivis. He'll join us. We'll talk out the Miami situation. David Beckham, he's going to do it. He's going to do South Florida. This is going to work out. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, joined now by friend of the show, writer for MLSsoccer.com, Soccer by Ivis, our friend Franco Panizo, who's down in South Florida right now. Hi, Franco. What's up, man?
Not much, man.
Not much?
It's actually pretty boring down here.
Not
right
much?
now.
Come on. Oh, come on. It's gotta be crazy in South Florida. It gotta be people running around in the street just like screaming Beckham's name at random intervals, right? That's what's happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys got to see, but he went to West Kendall after the announcement on Wednesday, and he ended up, trying to make an appearance at a local soccer park, and he was just mobbed. It was just ridiculous. They had to cut it short, his appearance short there, because he was just, swarmed with people trying to just get a picture of him or trying to, get their hand on his shoulder. It was ridiculous. If you haven't seen it, you should absolutely Google it. It's ridiculous.
I did see that video. I suggest people go out there. Look, there is no questioning. We'll get to what actually happened on Wednesday in a second, but there's no questioning David Beckham's celebrity power. The guy he's the brightest sun in the universe, and people just orbit around him. But does that necessarily feed into the idea of a successful MLS team in South Florida, in Miami? I mean, this is not necessarily a sure thing, and I'm not sure we've seen anything yet that would give us any reason to think it is.
It's a start. It's a start. I mean, a big name owner who resonates with the public here. Who fits that glamorous lifestyle that a lot of people like to have or like to try to have down here. So, and he said on Wednesday he's going to be very hands on. So you can expect him to continue to make public appearances, to be very involved, to go try to talk to the kids, anyone he can reach his message to. So it's a start. There's a lot more that goes to it, as he spoke about on Wednesday. So it's going to take a lot more. There's a lot more factors that go into all of this if it's going to be successful or not. But Beckham as an owner, I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that.
Let's give some context and sort of talk out what Wednesday actually was, because that's the fascinating thing for me. And it's not necessarily just about Miami, although I do have some thoughts there. But this was clearly sort of a reversal of the normal paradigm when it comes to MLS and expansion. They're not kind of attaching themselves to a group who has lined up the stadium and gotten all the ducks in a row and has the cash and is sort of saying, hey, MLS, we need your attention. MLS is actively propping up David Beckham's bid to put a team in South Florida. And in effect, that was sort of a campaign event.
Yeah, exactly. It was more of a pep rally than a press conference. As soon as David Beckham walked onto the stage, half of the media there just ran up to the front and started just snapping pictures on the phone. And you could see, I mean, David Beckham's trained at this. How he's been doing this for years. Working with Pop in LA, but you could see him just sitting there and his eyes just fluttering left and right as the classes went up. It was pretty interesting to see him have to manage that up close and how he just stays so calm with it. But it was pretty much a pep rally, just pretty much announcing that he's exercised the option. It's going to drum up support. I was speaking about this with a friend the other day. And my brother and my family here who are big soccer fans, the media presence there was pretty remarkable. There was at least hundreds of media, some a little questionable if they really were media, but for the most part, I mean, it was local channel news, Spanish media just wants to get information about what David Beckham's trying to do down here, and it's a great thing. It's a great thing for MLS. And that type of media presence would only do good for the league. It would only help the league. Obviously, they're trying to raise their TV ratings and get more eyeballs on the league. They're doing it for the most part, but it could always be better, right? So David Beckham's presence, it was pretty astounding to see how many people turned out for the thing. I think I heard that the parking lot, the garage that they had for us to park in, it ended up being too full, so they couldn't keep bringing people in. It was interesting, to say the least, to see how many people turned out. I would say it probably rivaled what was at MLS Cup final.
Interesting. I mean, look, I think that if this is going to work, you got to have somebody like Beckham attached to it. We've heard LeBron James' name has floated around. there's been no commitment there necessarily, although LeBron seems to get asked about it on a fairly regular basis and always seems very excited, which I think is great. Again, we get into the questions of whether or not this can actually work, but let me get to the details as they are. I mean, yes, exercising his option. That was really the one major revelation. Nothing else that came out of that pep rally is anything new to the soccer community. It might be spreading the word to everybody else, but in the circle we run in, Franco, this is not necessarily new. But I guess the issue is the stadium situation. Where's the best spot? I mean, look, Clore says we're not going to start until 2017. We're going to get this right. The Port Miami site is the one most mentioned, but they also say we've got 30 ideas if that doesn't work. Where do you think, as a local, I'm asking for your opinion, what do you think is the best spot for this?
Obviously, somewhere downtown would be ideal, just because of what you have down there. I mean, if you've never really been to downtown Miami, if you just stuck around South Beach during your visits here, there's stuff to do, and it's a part of town as well. Maybe not as much as South Beach, but there are things for locals to do, whether it's go to a bar, go to a restaurant. You have the American Airlines Arena, you have Bongo's nightclub in the American Airlines Arena. So there's things to do in and around downtown. So the Port Miami site would be great. Obviously, you have the water and the downtown in the backdrop. So that would be that'd be up there in terms of backdrops in MLS. It would be close enough to downtown where people could get to it. The real problem is the parking.
Yes, that's the question. Is what's the transportation situation? I mean, I've seen this on a map. Again, I'm not familiar with Miami, so I can't really speak to what issues there may be. But from what I hear, part of the problem is it's on an island. It's across the bridge from downtown. How do you get there, and how do you get people there without the massive snarls? And then because it's so hard to get to, nobody shows up.
That's the one big problem that I had from the pep rally, from what David Beckham said, from what Marcelo Claure said. Beckham said it during his initial comments, and then Claure kind of echoed the sentiment when we spoke to him afterwards. And they envision, in their ideal world, that they could have a Seattle Sounders type march to the match, where walk, maybe park in the downtown part of Miami, and then walk across this bridge that connects Miami to the port, and walk to the stadium. While that's a nice goal, a nice idea, 90-degree weather here with humidity, you might not see the type of you see walking with their scarves, and especially in summer. I don't think that's going to be all that easy to convince South Floridians to do. But aside from that, I do believe that they have an idea in terms of parking. I think Claure mentioned American Airlines Arena. They have a huge parking lot there. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to do it if there's an event in American Airlines Arena. You wouldn't be able to have games if the Heat were playing and use their parking spaces. But I think that part of their idea is to have, use the parking that's in downtown, use the parking that's in the American Airlines Arena to help alleviate, traffic into the port. Obviously, there's only right now one way in, one way out. Mm-hmm. They're building a tunnel as well to get to the port. So the city's building a tunnel. So that's for me is one of the bigger question marks. If they want to get this port, they're going to have to resolve the parking situation, and that's kind of tricky right now.
Do you have any sense? I mean, this is all guesswork on my part, and look, I get on the air and I have an opinion, and sometimes it's difficult to know what the reality is. But in this situation, do you get the sense that MLS is 100% on board with the idea of going back to Miami right now? I mean, I know Garber was there, and he did he went through the motions, and he said how great Beckham was, and gave his resume, and then said we're very excited. But to me, it seems like Beckham had the option. He chose Miami, and MLS is along for the ride rather than MLS saying, "Hey, this is a great idea."
I get a different sense. I get that they are on board 100% with having a team in Miami, because it just speaks to the volume of where the league is now. 2001, 2002, they had to take away the team in Miami. They had to take away the team in Tampa because the league just wasn't doing well. And bringing a team back to Miami would obviously speak wonders to the job that MLS is doing if they can make it work this time around. And I think that they want to make that statement. Obviously, they just brought a team to New York City, the second team in New York City, or New York, for Red Bull fans, crucify me. And there's also a team in Orlando, so they've come back. They want to make that statement. They're ready to grow and build their footprint and show how far soccer has come in the past decade, in the past, even 5 years. So I think they're on board. I think, if you've heard Garber speak over the past few years, he's always said, we have to return to South Florida at some point. It's a market that we need to be in. So I feel like this is, the perfect dream scenario for them. You've got Beckham wanting to bring in an investor group that could include, like you said, LeBron James, could include Jay-Z. There's been tons of names attached to it. So we'll see how it all plans out in the coming years. It's going to be interesting to keep tabs on the process of it.
All right, Franco, it's time for you as a South Florida guy to address the stereotype of Miami as a bad sports town and to tell me why that might not hold true for soccer and why the demographics of the city. Look, it's a diverse city, and defenders will say, the first thing they step up and say is, look, we've got people from all over the world here that love soccer. Why can't this be a success? So give it to me. Give me your case.
I will not defend that South Florida is a bad sports town, because it is. It is a bad sports town. There's the beach, there's the pool, there's nightclubs, there's all types of things you could be doing on your weekends, on your weeknights. So I won't it's a bad sports town. They have the heat here. It's like the weather heat. So people don't want to go out and sit in hot weather. But I think it can succeed with Beckham at the helm, because Beckham's a smart guy. And something that's gone a little overlooked is something I asked Claure about the spectacle of the sport, right? They have Simon Fuller, who's an investment, who's one of the three owners to start out.
Of course.
And the Miami Heat, they are probably, you would say, they're the most successful team in South Florida right now. So, and part of why that is yes, they have a star-studded team, and they have one of the best players in the world, and they've won championships, and they're competing year in and year out, which my MLS in Miami will have to do if they want to draw the attention of the locals. Part of their success in attendance is, I was at a game last week, actually, a Miami Heat game last week, and part of their spectacle is that it's not just a game. It's something where everybody wants to be at. It's something people brag about going to. It's the cachet of being at a Miami Heat game. It's a sporting spectacle,
Sure.
Bieber there, whoever, So it's something that people want to be at and want to brag about. So if MLS in Miami can do that, and like Clara was telling me, that's what Simon Fuller does. That's what his expertise is in. That's what he made American Idol. He knows how to connect people and make things an event. So if they can do that, if they can add to not just a soccer game, maybe at halftime. I don't know what they have.
Sure.
Whether it's lights, techno DJ coming, whatever it is. If they do something like that, where it's something where people want to be at, want to tag themselves on Facebook and say, "Hey, look, I'm at the stadium in Miami, downtown Miami, Port Miami."
Franco, I have no doubt that that's going to be the case to start out. At year one, maybe even year two, I imagine that is going to be a lot of the movement behind this. I mean, it's Miami, as you said, and even even if Simon Fuller wasn't involved, the idea that you could get David Beckham and maybe he gets some of his celebrity friends out or whoever wants to be seen at a Miami whatever game, that would get them going. But it's, I think, for everybody, questioning about year 3, 4, 5 down the line, how do you connect this and make this? Because look, you can tell about the diversity all you want and how many types of people in Miami are soccer fans. But a lot of those people come with pre-existing loyalties to clubs overseas or in South America or Mexico or wherever. Can you make those people connect to a Miami team? How do you make this team feel Miami and promote some kind of civic pride in it that's going to be long lasting?
That's the tricky part, and they're going to have to figure that out. That's where Claure and Beckham are going to have to put their heads together and really figure it out. Obviously, Claure is the one really funding most of this, or funding a good portion of it. And obviously has the brains, he has the soccer savvy. So they all each have their area of expertise. And Claudia said repeatedly, we all have our area of expertise and we've all done well. Now it's all about piecing that together and making this a good fit. I like you said, going towards to year 2, year 3, how do they keep that buzz going? And I would say, and I've covered the Red Bulls now for 2 years, and I would say they have to do what the Red Bulls as of late, and that's win. Let's win. Yes, you have to have the big names and attractive style, and a little side show that keeps people entertained at halftime or before kickoff, whatever. But you have to win. You have to win down here. I'd compare this to the LA Galaxy, this Miami team, to the LA Galaxy, to New York Red Bulls in terms of expectations. You're gonna have to win consistently. You're gonna have to be competing for a championship, MLS Cup, Supporter Shield. Open Cup, maybe not. Maybe that won't really resonate too much down here, but CONCACAF Champions League, things like that. They will have to be in a serious contender year in and year out to really resonate. And even that hasn't assured that Butts will win seats for the Red Bulls. But I feel down here, if you win and if you're able to have all the extra goodies that we talked about, you can get people out, because people love a winner. They love jumping on bandwagons. You should see the arena now. It's filled with people trying to get in. Maybe 5-6 years ago, that wasn't the case. It wasn't, the great thing that everybody has made it out to be now in South Florida. So if you win and you're competing and you're the talk of you will be the talk of the town. And that's what MLS and Miami needs to really strive for.
Now, I'm reserving judgment on the possibility of this being success because I don't know enough about what they plan. And, maybe some people were disappointed by the lack of information out of the quote unquote pep rally, but they got to get the stadium situation settled first. And then we can all start to judge who Beckham and his people hire, and whether or not there's any Miami expertise outside of Clore thrown into the mix. I mean, yeah, he's got the money to write the checks, but who's the guy that's going to help them connect this team, owned by an Englishman and a Bolivian to the people of Miami, who, if diversity is a strength, but it's also a weakness when you got to appeal to a ton of people.
Well, that goes back to Beckham's connections. He mentioned a few times Miami Heat owner Mickey Arison, who has to deal with the same issues. He's got, he plays in downtown Miami. He's got a diverse population that he needs to appeal to, and he's made it work. So Beckham's got to, he's going to have to sit down, talk to Mickey Arison again. He's going to have to talk to other people. He's going to have to bring in, like you said, the right investors. Whether that's LeBron James, who knows. But he's going to have to do all these things. It's going to be a lot of steps to make this work. But it seems from what they're pitching and from what it sounds, it seems like they have a plan to really make a good go at this, to really try to do this right. Last go around with the Fusion, they played in Lockhart, which is in Fort Lauderdale. It's half an hour away. Doesn't seem like a big commute, but in South Florida, it's a big difference between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. So, it's going to take a lot of steps. It's going to be a process, but it can work. I feel like honestly, it can work down here if all these things are met, and it's a lot to meet. It's a lot of prerequisites, a lot of things that need to be met. But that's South Florida is a demanding market, and I think Beckham's up for the challenge. I think the whole ownership group is up for the challenge, and we'll see how it pans out in the next few years.
Yeah, there we go. Franco Panizo from MLSsoccer.com, where he covers the Red Bulls and Soccer by Ibis as well. Thank you for your time, Franco. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. Always a good time.
Let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to touch on the other southeastern city, the likely to get an MLS team. Atlanta's got some news as well. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Stay right there.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Friday edition of Soccer Morning. Thanks to Franco Panizo for joining us, giving his perspective on David Beckham's decision to exercise his option in South Florida for an MLS franchise, getting that deal. I mean, I haven't heard otherwise. Getting the discount rate. New York City FC, $100 million. Orlando City, $70 million. David Beckham, Miami, $25 million. Now, it's obviously a ton of money to everybody but David Beckham and the people who can make these moves, but it's a clear discount. Now, the question that's being put out here by several people, last one I saw it from was Taylor Twelman on Twitter, is David Beckham flipping this, essentially? Is he going to buy this team for $25 million, buy the franchise rights from MLS for $25 million, get the stadium built, get that team up and going, and then flip it for $75 million in a couple of years? Because you can imagine that if they are relatively successful out the gate, if they show strong attendance numbers, then he could reap some benefit. Now, I would hope that there's something written into the contract in addition to, hey, you can get this team for $25 million. I would hope that there's something written in the contract that says he has to stay in his ownership position for 5 years, something to that effect. But I have no idea. Could imagine. I could imagine the other way around. Den's on Twitter. I think Miami presents more questions than answers at this point. But honestly, where else would a guy like Beckham go? I mean, that's why this always seemed destined to happen. David Beckham's in San Antonio. Nah, that's not. Come on. Everybody knows he's not going to actually put a team in San Antonio. Not his team. David Beckham's in this city. David Beckham in Oklahoma City. Can you imagine? I mean, no offense, Oklahoma City, but can you imagine? I don't think so. It was always going to be Miami. Now the job is to actually get this stadium deal done, put it in a place that is accessible, where there's transportation and parking. Make sure there's a roof on it. Has to be a roof. I don't know how much. Look, and let's just go ahead and debunk the myth of this group not taking any public funds for this stadium, because on some level they're going to be taking public funds, whether it's through a tax credit or some kind of tax break, or they're getting the land at a lower rate than market value. One of those things counts as public money, whether you consider whether that public money is going directly into the construction costs or not. Clore can go ahead and pay all the construction costs, but they need the help of Miami-Dade County, the state of Florida, in order to get the site and get all of the red tape done. So it's going to have public money involved on some level, and Field of Schemes will tell you all about it, even if David Beckham doesn't quite understand the mechanics of it. And really, I don't know that he needs to. He's not, no offense to David Beckham, he's not the brains behind this operation. He's the public face of it. He's the soccer face of it. And when it comes to, expressing passion for the game, which is a very important component of this in a place like South Florida where you have to sell it to the people, there's no better person than David Beckham. And as Franco said, he does his pep rally in the morning, and he goes to a youth soccer event in the afternoon, and there are so many people there, and he is so mobbed, they had to cut a 2-hour appearance down to 45 minutes. And there's the video that Franco talked about. David Beckham walking out of the park, leaving because, hey, look, this has got nuts. We got to shut this down. And I believe the mayor of Miami-Dade County was there as well. Placid as can be, just take it. This is nothing new for him. He is not going to be flustered in that moment. He's the guy to sell this product to South Florida, even if he doesn't connect on a background level with Florida. He's still got the football profile. So we'll see if it works. Now, we've got Orlando in. Done deal. I'm not sure anybody thinks that that's a bad decision. Although Orlando, I'm going to tell you this one time. Stop with the built not bought nonsense. You are entering MLS because the owner of your team, the original main investor of your team, took that club out of Austin, Texas, and moved it to Orlando. Don't tell me built not bought puts you on some different level here. I'm all for Florida rivalry. But that's ridiculous. I know the people of Austin aren't fond of that. I have nothing against Orlando City myself. No dog in that fight. I hate to see franchises, that dirty word the English hate so much. I hate to see teams moved and fan bases left behind. So in that sense, I feel for the people of Austin. But I respect what Orlando has done. Just don't turn yourself into hypocrites. Sorry. But with Orlando, Miami, it looks like MLS is going all in on the southeastern part of the United States. This has long been the underserved area for MLS in this in the history of this league. After 2001 and the death of the Fusion and the Mutiny, there's been nothing in the southeastern United States. And now we're on the verge. Orlando in 2015. Miami in 2017, if Clary's words are correct. And I'm gonna take him at his words. He's writing the checks. And Atlanta's coming. Atlanta's coming, guys. I've seen enough. I believe it's happening. Latest is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. In a keynote speech Thursday to DeKalb County Chamber of Commerce, Atlanta Falcons president Rich McKay said attempts to woo Major League Soccer to the city are moving right along. We're far along in negotiations with them, said McKay, speaking to chamber members at their annual meeting. It's our objective to get an MLS franchise if we can make it happen. We think it would be not just great for Atlanta and the region, but really it's the right thing to do for the Southeast. The Falcons are building a $1.2 billion retractable roof stadium that breaks ground this spring. They want to put an MLS team in that building. Now, I will say this for MLS. You got it right in Seattle. You got it right in Portland. You got it right in Toronto. No reason to believe that that's going to be a failure in any way, any particular way. Not the best stadium set up. But Vancouver's a strong team. Montreal absolutely works out as an MLS franchise. Little language diversity in the league. And now it's the Southeast. And now, look, I get from a TV perspective, we use this word, it's a corporate word, footprint. MLS is all about footprint right now. They need that television footprint. If they're going to get a good deal, they need a television footprint. The Southeast with Atlanta and Miami and Orlando was underserved, and now it's not going to be underserved, and we'll see what happens. But there are some serious doubts. And for all the credit that MLS has built up, doesn't mean people shouldn't question this. I got a caller. I'm not sure who this is. You're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Jason? It's Washington.
Hey, Washington. What's up, man?
How's it going? Listen, I'm wondering what your thoughts are because, we got all these expansions that are happening, and there's no stadium in place anywhere. Sometimes there's not even a plan yet. There's a plan to make a plan. And then we have San Antonio, the Scorpions, who have this great stadium that can be expanded,
but it's relatively
quickly. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are that, they're not being considered as heavily as, say, Miami or Atlanta.
I think San Antonio's in the mix for 24. I absolutely do. I mean, I handicapped this race last week, and I left out Minneapolis, and I've thought about it some more. There are 5 or 6 cities that can legitimately be considered contenders for number 24, and I think San Antonio's on that list. Garber was down there when Mexico played South Korea last week, so he's obviously in touch with what's happening. And yeah, they've got a stadium. The thing about the Scorpions, and they've done great stuff, and their attendance year 1 was great, year 2 not as great, but still very good. And they've got that expandable building. I don't think it's in a great location, from what I understand, in terms of the downtown feeling that MLS likes.
It's a little removed.
It's removed from downtown. It's more of a Columbus Crew type situation in terms of location, and I understand that it's expandable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy just to figure out the expansion, get it all done, get them ready. I mean, I think that you could argue San Antonio is more ready for an MLS franchise than Miami, Orlando, or Atlanta. But there's a lot of other factors that are going into these decisions, and I'm not necessarily defending them,
Right.
But
Well, I have no dog in that fight either. I'm a New Yorker, but I read the articles, I see the interviews, and I just took note that, wow, they have this great facility, and meanwhile, these other expansions don't even have a plan to make a plan yet. So
yeah, well, I mean, look, again, Orlando's deal is done. I think that's going to happen. They just, right now we're dealing with, when it comes to Orlando, we're talking about the church that's going to be, taken through eminent domain. I mean, that's the main talking point. Hopefully those people get a fair deal and are happy with the resolution, but I don't think there's any stopping the stadium in Orlando. Beckham's got a ton of work to do in Miami, but I think that happens. I mean, there was no sense. You didn't get any sense from the quote unquote pep rally, and I know they wouldn't present a negative necessarily, Washington, but you didn't get any sense that he thinks it's going to be a problem. If they've got 30 sites identified, they're going to find one that they can work out a deal for, and Clore will get it built and everything will move forward. Atlanta's going to put them in it's going to put them in an NFL stadium. And that's going to strike people the wrong way from the outset. Unless you're going to be the Seattle Seahawks, and this is going to be an indoor building. So it's not even comparable to the Seahawks on that level. And it's more than likely they're going to have a configuration that is going to be appropriate for soccer. I know, and I get that feeling in my gut too that says, well, that's not where we should be in 2014. Right. We should be, have our own buildings and everything else. But you got to think about what MLS gets out of the deal. First of all, Atlanta's a tough nut to crack, just like Miami, and there's going to be lots of questions of whether or not they can be consistently successful selling tickets. But Atlanta's a massive market. Atlanta is the center of the southeastern universe outside of Florida. For MLS to say we need to be in the Southeast, there's really no other place to go but Atlanta.
Right.
So I mean, it's kind of a tough balancing act for a league that wants to leap ahead commercially, but has to figure out how not to, undercut the game, so to speak. And I think most fans lean towards the game. I want the game respected. I don't want football lines. I want grass and not artificial surfaces. I don't want sheets over my head to make it feel like it's a 25,000 seat stadium when it's really an 85,000, whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's where fans fall. But from a where we want this league to be perspective, these are defensible moves. There's no guarantee of success, and we're all scared.
So can I ask you a follow-up? Do you think we're going to stay at 24 for a little while once we get to 24, or do you think it grows from there?
I think that Don Garber has smartly left the door open on that question. He may have said 24 by 2020, but he never said we're going to stop at 24. I don't see a reason.
Recently, he hasn't said that, because I remember, as years have gone on, the numbers have increased. I remember when it was 20, we stopped at 20. So, recently he said, he's kind of left the window open. The only concern I have with that is it's starting to really look a lot like the old North American Soccer League.
Yes,
and that really scares me, because I want this league to be around for a long time, and I don't know, I just hope they're taking the proper precautions.
Yeah, I think that's an obvious reaction, that this is very NASL in the way that they're expanding. Now, I think that the landscape of buying into MLS is fundamentally different than anything that happened with the old NASL. If you had $500,000 and the will, you could get into the NASL back in the day. Now I think the standards are clearly much, much higher, which should make for a stable environment. There are no guarantees. And I think MLS, whether or not Garber is telling the exact truth when he says they're losing $75 to $100 million a year, I think MLS is still, for the most part, spending money they don't have on potential. Right. But I think that the foundation is strong enough. I really do. I mean, I think that there is enough infrastructure, which is what the NASL never had, Washington. The NASL never had a building that you said,
that's true,
this is such and such a stadium. It was always the Cosmos are playing in Giant Stadium, or they're playing at Hofstra, or this team is playing in
RFK. I think the Diplomats,
right, or a high school stadium. MLS has evolved past the point of high school stadiums and NFL buildings for the most part. And what we're seeing is there's a fundamental difference between the Sounders playing at CenturyLink in 2013-14 and the Cosmos playing at Giant Stadium in 1977. So, I mean, we have to mollify ourselves with these small differences, but I mean, they're out there. You don't have to buy it. I can see why people would be concerned. I'm really not though. I don't fundamentally. I keep saying that word. I don't think MLS is going anywhere.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks a lot, Jason.
I appreciate it, Washington. Thanks for the call. Washington from New York, excellent caller. 347-756-6276 is the phone number. If you want to get in on any of these questions, certainly MLS expansion is always a hot button topic. And I'm getting a little bit of a few tweets on the question of 24, and even beyond that. Look, if you live in Minneapolis, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Charlotte, or Raleigh, which I'm not sure is a real candidate, but okay, Raleigh, or Sacramento. If you live in one of those cities, and I may even be leaving one or two out, Phoenix, I don't know if they're really, whatever. It's a big market. You would think there'd be some kind of interest. If you live in one of those cities, and people don't talk about your town being considered for number 24. You should take heart in the likely fact that MLS is not going to stop at 24. There's really no reason for MLS to stop at 24. Now, I know the traditionalists among us don't like the idea of a 32-team league, but this is a really big country. And if we're not going to institute the pro-rel pyramid, and I'm not getting into that discussion right now, good or bad, I'm just saying it's not happening. If that's the reality, then a 32-team league is not a bad thing to cover more of the country, to give more of these cities the opportunity to have top-level soccer. And in that situation, and look, this is very much the soccer blogger's hobby kit or every big soccer thread you've ever read. But we can all imagine a 32-team league split into 16-team conferences. You play everybody in your conference twice, and then you play a couple of out-of-conference games. You fill up a 34, 36-game schedule. We can all imagine that seems like a very possible conclusion to the furthest growth of MLS. And that means, look, we're at 21 with 22 coming, 23 probably coming in Atlanta. 24 is the open question. San Antonio, Sacramento, Minneapolis. This is no particular order. Minneapolis, St. Louis, who I missed the first time around. Charlotte, and then, down the line. I know 24 to 32 is a lot of teams, but, I don't know. Detroit, that right there is 5. You only need a couple more to make out to fill out a 32. Now, not everybody is going to be a rousing success, and maybe that's where you have to question MLS. Do you continue to expand because there is a demand on the part of very rich people who may or may not want to put their team in a very large market, which can help you on the TV end if people watch? Should you be just handing teams to rich people, provided they meet a set of circumstances? Or should there be a higher hurdle to leap over? If MLS decided to stop at 24 for a considerable period of time, which is possible. There's nothing that says that they're not. It's open. It's open. If these cities show that they want MLS and they've got somebody behind it, and they can get a stadium deal done, then, it's very possible MLS gets to 32. But if they do stop at 24 and say, no thanks to those cities, and then 10 years from now, the expansion interest has waned, will they regret that decision? I suppose for a lot of people, the question will continue to be, how big is too big? How big is too big? I would have trouble tracking 32 soccer teams every season. I just from a selfish perspective. People ask, I did in lieu of a show yesterday, I did a little bit of a Twitter Q&A. People are asking me for predictions. I was just throwing teams. It's preseason. I know we got less than a month to the season starts. But it's difficult to have a handle on how everybody's doing, right? I mean, you know your team. I know what's happening in certain places. I gotta go look and see what everybody's doing. If you're not making headlines, it's kind of hard to track. So 32 teams would be difficult. Now, if it was mostly contained conferences, I suppose that would make it easier. But there are there are questions about where this league is going. And you can either decide to give MLS the benefit of the doubt because the last couple rounds of expansion have been successful, or you can believe that they are stretching it a little too thin and that places like Atlanta and Miami are not ready for this. And then it's going to make the league look bad when there's 10,000 people in that NFL building in Atlanta, or when David Beckham's buzz goes away and nobody's showing up to the Miami team in 2020. We don't know any of that's going to happen. And the evidence is stronger that these teams are going to eventually struggle than it is that they're going to be a success, because we only have history to go on. And we all know, whether it's fair or not, we all have this sense that neither one of those cities, Atlanta or Miami, is really that interested in supporting their sports teams. And look, it's sports. It's not life or death. If Miami people have better things to do, I don't blame them for not showing up. The impetus, the burden is on MLS. The burden is on David Beckham. The burden is on Marcelo Corre to prove to us that they're not making a mistake. And while I would suggest that everybody in Miami go support this team, they're the ones that have to convince people. The Southern Legion guys are hitting us up on Twitter. I love that. Keep coming. We'll talk about it. Get some more. We need to get some Southern Legion guys on this show. Talk about what they're doing. That's the MLS supporters group that exists down there in South Florida. Got to do that work. Got to spread the word. It's a major part of it. Got to be inclusive. To make it a fun atmosphere. It's going to be interesting. This will probably be the hardest thing David Beckham has ever done. Everything else comes easy for him. Has David, I mean, okay, the closing days of his tenure at Manchester United before he was sold. Yeah, maybe that was a little difficult. But other than that, I mean, everything's been easy. Handed to him on a platter. You're David Beckham. Here, have this thing that I just spent, $1,000 on because you're David Beckham. You're David Beckham. Here, have a team in Miami. But now he's got to do the work or hire the people to do the work. 954, you're on the air.
Hey, how are you? Good morning. I'm the one who called you from the event.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My friend from the Southern Legion, right?
Yeah.
What's your name, dude?
I could barely hear you.
No, it's good.
Miguel.
I'm sorry?
My name is Miguel.
Miguel. What's up, Miguel?
Everything is up in the air, but it's all good. This is the most action that we've seen down here for a long time.
Sure.
And I'm kind of calling a little bit out of frustration and kind of to dispel some myths.
Okay, that's fair. Go ahead.
I keep hearing from fans all over the country, oh, Miami doesn't support its teams. If you had our teams, you may not support them either. I mean, the Marlins are... I remember when my whole family, who are not baseball fans, were ready to jump into the Marlin bandwagon, and the next thing you know, they sold out the team.
Yeah, okay, let's...
it has to do a little bit with the ownership that we have.
Sure, and I think that's absolutely fair to point out that the Florida Miami Marlins ownership has routinely put together good teams and then sold those teams off and sort of alienated every baseball fan in South Florida. That's absolutely true.
Right. The hockey team kind of did a little bit, but they've changed their ways a bit.
That one, I hear
from my cousin
Miguel. That one, it's hockey in South Florida. Come on.
Tell that to my cousin. I got a weird cousin who's all into it. I got plenty of people here at work who follow hockey.
I know the Kings. The Kings are popular, and I don't know how the Lightning do, but just the idea of hockey in Florida is just weird to me. But yeah, okay, go for it.
It's a bit of a northeastern city down south.
That is true. That is true. That there's a diaspora in Miami who probably support hockey. Yeah, go ahead.
The other part of it is, there's so many things to do in Miami. They don't really support their teams. It's sort of the same thing you hear about why NFL isn't in Los Angeles. But then again, you look at the teams in Los Angeles, case in point, the Galaxy. If a team is run well, people will go.
Okay.
if it's not run well, you
Yeah.
end up with Chivas USA.
Yeah, I mean, Miguel, I think, and again, it's out there. I have to address it, but I am certainly more leaning more towards waiting and a wait and see attitude. Let Miami prove it rather than right flat out now say it's a mistake. I don't think that's the case, and I do think that there is a possibility. Again, I worry about years 3, 4, and 5, but I do think that out of the gates with Beckham on board. If this stadium is as nice as it can possibly be, if there's a roof on it, if they make sure the transportation works out, and you can tell me how important that is, then I think that there's a chance that, hey, they come out of the gates, flying, and then it's just a matter of keeping that momentum and being successful on the field.
To transportation, to touch real quick, it is a concern. This is a city where you drive everywhere. But if they do put it in that location, even if you do have to walk across a bridge or take a boat or, whatever touristy gimmicky thing they want to do to make this work.
That'd be awesome.
It actually is a decent location because you can actually park your car in various areas in South Florida. There aren't many, but there are enough where you can park your car and actually take the train or the metro or something down.
Okay.
It's one of the very few spots in South Florida that you may say that you can do that. And that's, I've been talking that a lot with family and friends. Okay,
look, I think Miguel. I think from what the way that it's been explained to me by you and by Franco, it sounds like if fans are willing to put in a little bit of effort, then it won't be that big of a deal. Everybody's question is how many people in Miami are going to be willing to put in that effort, and I do think that there's some doubt as to whether soccer is just like all those other sports. It's probably not. And there may be a different level of support. And the Fusion are not this team. And all of these things leave doubt open. And I'm definitely rooting for Miami.
Yeah. We have the same fears. I come from the viewpoint that I'm willing to walk or swim, whatever.
Yeah. Right. But you're the exception, and there's not going to be 17, 18, 19,000 people just like you, Miguel.
That's where the question comes. So I've had 2 people already at work. I'm at work right now. That's usually why I don't call the show. I'm hoping my boss doesn't walk in.
Well, I'm about to let you go because I got to move on, but go ahead very quickly.
Real quick. I've had 2 people at work come in and ask me, hey, how do I join? I gotta do this.
Okay.
People that I've been talking to for years now. Hey, come on in.
Right.
So taking this advantage of this, for that other caller that you had that on Wednesday who the Broward caller from, with Brazilian background, you should have been there. You should come out next time. Hit us on the webpage. We're trying to build our numbers so that people don't say that we're buying a team.
Yeah.
We've been here all along.
Yeah.
So don't complain that there aren't any fans. Become a fan and come out.
Okay. Fair enough. And I think that clearly what happened on Wednesday is doing the job of letting all of those people who weren't aware know that there's something going on. And that's crucial to this process. Miguel from down there in Florida, Southern Legion calling in. Thanks for your time, Miguel. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right. I gotta take a quick break. When I come back, I think that's the wrong music, but it doesn't matter. When I come back, Cristian Nyari from Bundesliga Fanatic will join us in his usual Friday spot. It's Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Stay there. Be right back.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, happy to have on the line our good friend from Bundesliga Fanatic, Cristian Nyari, the second most talented member of his family. Hi, Cristian. How are you?
And that's being kind.
Is it? So there are more Nyaris that you're behind in that pecking order?
No, there's only one.
Okay.
Even that's being kind.
Oh, okay. So you're saying the distance between you and your brother. His brother does amazing soccer art, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like the Bundesliga, and he's Bayern, and I'm just the rest.
You're the
and there's just like a 20-point gap.
I think that's being kind to your brother. Come on. Just because you do something different with your talents doesn't mean not. Are we creatives? Do you consider I don't know if you write fiction or do art, Cristian?
No, I used to, but then we kind of deviated. I started doing the writing. He started doing more illustration, but it's kind of always been like that. There was always a split. Like I was always the more musical person. He was into film. He's a big cinephile as well.
Okay.
So there's always been a split, but yeah. I mean, art has just been a big. It's kind of over.
What's your brother's Twitter handle? Because people should absolutely go check out your brother's stuff.
At Daniel Nyari.
There you go. Go check out his work. It's fantastic illustrations, football, soccer illustrations. All right, Cristian.
Yes.
We bring you. We tend to veer off, but we bring you on to start at least talking about the Bundesliga and German football. The news today is a game today. The big game today. Gladbach and Leverkusen, which you just mentioned to me before we came on the air. This game is big for what reason specifically? First of all.
Well, it's big for Gladbach because they had a pretty poor start to 2014. They lost their first 2 games. That hasn't happened in a while. They've never, ever lost 3 games historically, and or coming out of the winter break anyways. They've never lost 3 consecutive games there. But at the same time, their record against Leverkusen is pretty poor at home. I mean, Leverkusen haven't lost in Gladbach in 21 years. So it's a kind of game where Gladbach, I mean, I don't want to say must-win game on the 20th match day, but Gladbach already, Schalke already surpassed them in the 4th spot. If Leverkusen beat them there and Wolfsburg win, they'll tie them on points, and Gladbach could kind of slip out of that. So they don't want to fall too far behind. It's also a matter of momentum. Gladbach have done really, really well in the second half of the season. So this, losing 3 games on the trot would be something unprecedented for them.
Werder Bremen and Dortmund tomorrow morning our time, obviously not in Germany. Dortmund right now third, 36 points, 2 points ahead of Schalke, 3 points ahead of Gladbach. Are they in any particular danger with their injury problems and all of the things that have sort of swirled around this season? Are they in any particular danger of dropping out of the top 4 and losing out on the Champions League?
I mean, the way things have been going, they're always in danger. They're in perpetual danger. Just collapse because, I mean, just last week they got Mats Hummels back, who was out for a couple of months, and after the weekend he became injured again in a training game, so he's gonna miss this game. Dortmund's defensive record has been pretty poor. I mean, they've conceded at least 1 goal in their last 10 games. That hasn't happened in a decade for them. And we have to remember, for all the exciting attacking soccer Dortmund play, they had a really, really good defense when they won the title. Their defense was absolutely amazing, and it was one of the best defense. They had one of the best defensive records in Europe, and that's just kind of fallen to the side in the last year and a half. Obviously, a lot of that is down to injuries,
right? But
it's something that the club and Klopp is really trying to focus on sorting out.
Speaking of those injuries, why not give the full list here? I mean, if you can remember all of them. I mean, obviously Subotic is gone for I don't know how much longer he's got on his injury, but he's certainly not available. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he might be out for the season.
Okay.
It's one of those things where they it's almost diagnosed bi-weekly.
Well, Hummels comes back and is injured again. Probably not for a long stretch on this particular injury.
No, it's a short injury, but it's also the kind of thing where you need to get back and play a couple of games before you're 100%, and this is just going to delay that again. And then the Champions League's coming up again really soon. So that's a big problem. Obviously, Blazikowski is out for the season. He was injured pretty badly 2 weeks ago. So he's out. And obviously, Ilkay Gündoğan, who, in my opinion, is their biggest miss. They're fearing the worst, that he might miss another 2 months or so, which could be disastrous for them in a European context anyways. Subotic, like you said, Hummels is out. Lukas Piszczek has been back, but he hasn't been starting because he's still not 100% fit. And his hip injury, he had hip surgery last year, is still bothering him. He played through pain for 6 months last season. So it's not the kind of injury you get over easily, even after you have the surgery. So he's still not 100%. Marco Reus has been in and out with small injuries there as well. Sven Bender and Sebastian Kehl are constantly injured. Those guys are almost never fit at the same time. So, out of the, I guess, first 11, I would say maybe there are four players who have been injury-free this season.
Fire the training staff. What's happening?
It's ridiculous. People are speculating and theorizing that it's the way Klopp has them train. It's too intense, but they've been doing this for years, and it's impossible, I would say, to assume that all of a sudden it has all these consequences. I think a lot of it is just poor luck.
Yeah, no, I think it probably is luck. I think that when you get this many at the same time, though, it obviously, people, they can't imagine that it's just down to chance, that it has to be something wrong with the setup there at Dortmund, or that Klopp is doing something wrong. But these things are cyclical, and in this particular cycle, Dortmund's down. Now they've got Zenit in the round of 16. Is there an argument to be made that, hey, you know what? If we lose to Zenit, it's not the end of the world. We've got the league to focus on.
I'm sure there will be a way to spin it like that, but I don't think so.
Okay.
With Bayern just running away with the league, and probably winning the cup again, there's really not much else. I'm not saying Dortmund can win the Champions League or will win the Champions League. I don't think that's going to happen, but progressing even a round further brings in quite a bit of money, even for a club like Dortmund, who have been doing well financially. So it's, finishing the season trophyless, that's something that's very realistic. I don't think Dortmund supporters are expecting anything else, but Zenit are a beatable opponent.
Yes.
And they, especially the status they created for themselves last season and how successful they were. Not that they were going to repeat that by any means, but they have a certain European pedigree now that they should have to, or should try to live up to, and not be like, other German clubs in the past who have done very well one season and then just never been able to repeat that.
Well, that's interesting that you say. I don't mean to cut you off, but it's interesting that you say that based on the last couple of years, they have now elevated themselves to what I suppose is the top tier of European teams when it comes to this competition. And if they do take a dip, then everything is a disappointment, rather than being a team as they have historically been, that sort of come in and out of this tournament being a success.
Yeah, and it's really strange because the narrative for Dortmund has been very different from other top clubs, or maybe smaller clubs who became then elite or top tier clubs, because the season before last, they were absolutely miserable in Europe. They didn't make it out of the group stage in the Champions League the year before. Then they were knocked out of the Europa League in the group stage as well. And just last year, I think they really elevated themselves to that position. And now there's a real, maybe not struggle, but there's an attempt now to keep it that way.
Mm-hmm. I'm still looking at the Champions League stuff here, and while we're talking about the round of 16 and the German clubs involved, Leverkusen has PSG. Now they're certainly not going to be favorites up against a team as star-studded as PSG. But if Leverkusen is going to spring a surprise in that tie, is there what do they need to do at this point? Or are they set up to do it? I suppose to keep Cavani and Zlatan and everybody else quiet there.
Maybe find 3 or 4 guys who will mark Zlatan during the game, maybe.
Play with 15, something like that.
Maybe try very hard not to be swooning for Zlatan or ask for
Is that a real danger for a club like Leverkusen? Do you think?
No, it's played up, and part of that was tongue in cheek. But I mean, that's a lot of people have that perception with Leverkusen now, especially because it's a young, inexperienced team. They were up against United in the group stage. Now they're playing PSG with Cavani and Zlatan and Thiago and all those players. And people still remember that game against Barcelona. It was 2 seasons ago, I think, where 2 players were almost fighting for Messi's jersey at halftime, which was extremely embarrassing. That was I was under a different coach, obviously, and this Leverkusen team is a little different, but that's still the kind of perception they have as a young, up and coming team with very little experience and a lot to prove. They have to show that they're kind of their own team, and these players maybe play with the kind of confidence and demeanor that says, okay, we belong here, instead of, okay, let's just see what happens and make the best of it, but more like we can actually beat these guys. Let's just believe in ourselves.
Bayern Munich's got Arsenal. For anybody who forgot that, they're. I'll just go ahead and pencil them in for the quarterfinals right now.
Arsenal or Bayern?
Bayern. I mean, I know. I've defended Arsenal's title credentials in the Premier League, and I like to play up the narrative that they are a rickety outfit, because it's fascinating to me that they've played this well and they've done this much, and yet there's still this sort of overarching belief that Arsenal is going to crumble, or at least people wouldn't be surprised if they crumbled at this point. They are going to present a challenge for Bayern Munich, no doubt, but it's at the same time Bayern's going to be overwhelming favorites.
Are people really still waiting for Arsenal to just kind of fall?
Well, I think it's also a function that people believe City's a better club and that they're going to go on and win the title. And then, you never know what's going to happen with Chelsea, and Arsenal's going to, if Arsenal finishes 3rd or 4th, then really nothing's changed and they're still same old Arsenal.
Yeah, but it's been almost a year of just really good.
I know that. I agree with you. I'm just saying. And we talked.
What about why don't people wait in a similar way for Bayern to just kind of fall apart?
Because they are crushing everybody in Germany, and because they've been on this sort of meteoric ride over the last couple of seasons, and I don't know. I mean, look, we are developing narratives independent of each other until these two teams play in the Champions League. So, and I don't know that it matters that Bayern Munich is 13 points clear, has only given up 9 goals in the league. 9 goals in the league. I don't know that any of that matters when they play Arsenal, but they're still within the league. There's still those narratives being created.
Absolutely, yes. But as far as I'm concerned, this game is 50-50.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because as good as Bayern have been in the Bundesliga, and they were great in 2 or 3 games in the group stage of the Champions League, but they also showed that they're kind of vulnerable. And I know the loss to City on the last match day was kind of an inconsequential match for them, but it was also the other games. One game against Moscow, where they looked kind of not weak, but they were vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And I think if you approach them the right way, if you have the team set up the right way, there's no reason why you can't score against them. And just the nature of the Champions League and that tournament and those games is that one goal can really change the complexity of a match. If Arsenal manage to score against Bayern, it'll completely change the psychology of what Bayern have to do. It'll put them in all-out attack mode, and it'll make them even more vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that Bayern are as clear as favorites as many people are saying.
Okay, fair enough. Are we past the point of holding referendums on Pep's tactics working at Bayern?
I mean, yeah. By now, everyone in Germany, or 99% of people in Germany or around Bayern, have just kind of accepted him as the overlord of Munich. Although journalists and fans are not that happy about it because he makes practices kind of inaccessible. They just put up more walls around the training pitches, so fans can, because they used to have open practice before Guardiola came in, and now it's all closed off, and journalists have less access. They don't have that much. They don't have as much time with players and coaches, so they're probably not happy about it. But it seems to work.
That's one of the, not to go inside baseball here, and a little bit of navel gazing on a journalistic front, but the differences between the European approach to accessibility and the American approach are fascinating to me. And I'm not making a value judgment about either one, but in Germany, because I don't want to treat Europe as monolithic, in Germany, is there a tradition of any particular access? Are we talking about just the big papers or the big outlets? How does that work?
No, it's actually generally quite open. Clubs are very, very open to the media. Some more than others, of course, but that changes with the profile of the club. Bayern is on an island, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, everything with them is much more difficult than with the other clubs, but obviously that's for a reason. Their profile is much, much bigger. Their players are much, much bigger. They have many more agents and people of interest wandering around or in the club who I guess want or share time or want to control time. So it's more difficult. But the other clubs historically and even now are much more accessible and they've always have been. And that's one of the good things about, I guess, working as a journalist in Germany. It's not very difficult, I think, to have access to games, have access to players and coaches. And that's a great thing.
It's interesting when European players come to the U.S. and Thierry Henry is certainly on this list, and there have been many. David Beckham is a guy who, if you want an interview with him, you got to pay him, which is insane to Americans, but from his perspective, is just the way things are done. It's fascinating to see European players come to this country and have to adjust to the way we open locker. I'm sure Germany doesn't have open locker rooms. I'm sure that's only an American phenomenon.
Yeah, no, you don't see that often. Definitely not. Why is that here? What's the culture there?
It's one of those things. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way we do it. I don't know. To be honest with you, when open locker rooms developed, it is particularly interesting in the context of sort of how MLS is going to have to work within the world of a wider world of soccer. If it's going to be, they want to put themselves up on whatever level they have as a goal, then this is going to be more back and forth than ever before. And when you get a player like, does Jermaine Defoe know he's going to have to deal with reporters in his face 5 minutes after the game? Does he realize that? I'm not sure he does.
I think he'll come to terms with it when he receives his check.
And I just imagine that, that's got to be a massive adjustment for players coming over here. I can't even fathom that, because you go from completely, especially English players, you go from completely protected, you're in a bubble. You really don't talk unless it's a very controlled environment with somebody who has a certain profile. It's the BBC, it's the Guardian, something like that. And then you come here and you're getting paid a lot of money, but people are up in your business after you get out of the shower. That's funny to me.
And two things here. First of all, I think it's kind of ridiculous because in Europe you have all these like 17 or 18-year-old players who are extremely media and savvy and PR trained, and it's kind of disturbing.
Yes.
Also, I don't understand why people would even be interested, or why are people interested in this whole locker room culture? What's the fascination there? Why do people need an insight into the locker room? Is this?
I imagine that the thought is, if you get a comment, if you get the reaction of a player immediately after a win or a loss, you're more likely to get the natural emotional reaction than if you had to wait for an hour for a mix zone when they have time to sort of gather the thoughts and end up giving you platitudes. I mean, I do think it makes for more interesting quotes, whether it's right for the players or not. Again, I'm not making a value judgment there, but I do think that it probably leads to more interesting things. Whether they're more accurate or not from a player's perspective, I don't know. Because, I was in the MLS Cup winning locker room minutes after Sporting Kansas City won that title, and those guys, I mean, some of them were running around spraying each other with champagne. Some of them were like man, we got to deal with like 50 guys trying to ask me questions while I'm, getting cleaned up here. It's an interesting dynamic. It absolutely is.
Who is the Richard Sherman of Sporting Kansas City?
I don't think there is one. I think soccer in this country, from that end, the personalities need to be a little bit more interesting. And
you're not going to get that from Matt Beasler, are you?
No, you're not. And not from Graham Zusi. You might get it from Aurelien Colin, but it's going to be in broken English with a French accent, and that's just tough to decipher. While I have you here, Christian, since we don't always stay on script, what do you make of Beckham in Miami?
Oh, that's a tough one. I like the expansion.
Okay.
It'll be great, obviously, with Orlando there as well, to have some kind of local rivalry going. But it's still so far away, and obviously there's the whole issue of Miami as a market, as a sports market there to circumvent. I mean, I was watching I watched the press conference and then the Google Hangout David Beckham did.
Yeah.
With Jimmy, and a lot of those responses. I mean, to me, it just signaled that there was just so much indecision there still, and so much planning to do that nothing is really sure. I mean, this project is still so far away.
Well, we know, and again, I mean, I don't want to insult David Beckham. I just think he doesn't often have to do things for himself in these ways. I mean, the whole project.
Right, he wasn't maybe the best guy to.
I mean, he's got to be the public face. I get that, but clearly the project's going to turn on all of those other people who are working behind the scenes, and certainly the money that's behind him, not on what decisions David Beckham. I mean, he may decide, what style to make the club, the club suites, decorative style to put in the club suites, interior. He's not going to decide, he's not going to decide the fundamental basics of running the club. I just don't think he has that knowledge base. And I don't think it's really important if he does so, as long as they hire the right people. That's the question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking into the future with Miami and NYFC as kind of a city Chelsea,
interesting,
kind of competitive thing going on. Just two clubs, obviously, with the right ownership or some pretty deep pockets there. But I don't know. It's difficult. It's weird to kind of to see the discrepancy in what's going to develop in Miami and New York City and some of the other clubs in the league.
Yeah, that's when you compare the clout behind those two clubs or teams or franchises, whatever you want to call them, and Columbus and Chivas USA and some of these other the San Jose Earthquakes, who took forever to build a stadium, and it's going to be an 18,000 seat stadium with very few bells and whistles. I mean, these are. But then again, I think that makes the league more interesting. You don't want everybody to be the same. That's
no. But I mean, yeah, the structure is going to remain the same. The rules are going to remain the same. But parity has always kind of been the thing. Mm-hmm. But the league's also never had to deal with entities like this.
No, it hasn't. And when those entities bring their checkbooks and push and say we want to sign this guy and this guy and this guy, and the rules don't provide for it, what is MLS going to do? Say no, you can't spend all that money that you want to spend on your team and make them better and raise the profile. You have to follow our very strict rules. This is why MLS has decided the rules don't really mean a lot and they can be changed at any time. Cristian Nyari from Bundesliga Fanatic. I always like getting his perspective on things stateside as well. Christian's a keen observer of the game everywhere. So go follow him on Twitter, Nyari, and check out Bundesliga Fanatic. Anything else? Bundesliga for you on Twitter, is that right? To you?
Yep. That's Bundesliga for you.
For you, so the number 4.
The number 4 and the digit U.
There you go. Thank you for your time, Christian. I appreciate it, man.
No problem.
I'll talk to you again soon. All right. Good stuff from Christian there. Closing out this Friday edition of Soccer Morning. Couple of topics here I had on the rundown we didn't really get a chance to spend a lot of time on. Number 1, the LA Gunners rumors. If you're not aware of these, rumors have erupted out of England and specifically from metro.co.uk, which not the most reliable source, perhaps even the Sun involved in this one. So not reliable sources at all. But the rumor is Stan Kroenke bought a parcel of land in downtown LA that at first the theory was he was going to threaten St. Louis with moving the Rams back to LA, and he was going to use that parcel to build an LA NFL stadium. Now the rumor is he's going to actually use that parcel of land to build an MLS stadium, and he's going to put an MLS team in it, and they're going to be called the LA Gunners, and they're going to be very closely tied to Arsenal, which Stan Kroenke also owns. I don't buy these rumors at all, although I will say the caveat is if MLS is interested in pushing for Chivas USA to be sold, Vergara gets out of the Chivas USA business, and Stan Kroenke wants to take that team over and make them an LA team in a different part of the city, I'm all for that. I think the name is a ridiculous thing, but I'm all for the idea of somebody else taking on Chivas USA and giving them a different place in LA to separate them from the Galaxy, get out of that shadow, and make that team a success that it can be. So there's that rumor floating around. Again, just not buying it. The other news that I wanted to address, Eddie Johnson, not that Eddie Johnson, the other Eddie Johnson, the English Eddie Johnson, is suing the Portland Timbers for $9.9 million as a result of his career ending due to concussion. The suit claims that the Timbers had him training back in practice while still suffering from concussion symptoms that eventually, again, led to the end of his career. 9-page lawsuit filed Wednesday. This is from OregonLive.com. Filed Wednesday in Multnomah County Circuit Court claims negligence by the Timbers and their doctors caused Johnson to suffer serious and permanent traumatic head and brain injuries. This is a guy who came from the lower divisions of American soccer to join the Timbers in MLS. It obviously is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's sad that his career ended the way it did. I don't know that there's any culpability on the Timbers' end, but it doesn't take a leap of faith to imagine that a team, any sports team, would mishandle a concussion. We know that this has happened before. $9.9 million is a lot of money. Seems interesting. That's an interesting number. It's a lot of money, and obviously there's emotional distress involved in the calculation there. I don't know that we might just see the Timbers settle this one out of court quietly, get themselves removed. Here's a statement from the Timbers, by the way. While we cannot comment publicly on any specific active legal proceeding, we can definitely state that the Portland Timbers follow all MLS player health-related protocol and have done so since we joined the league. Additionally, we approach head injuries with extra caution, err on the side of conservatism above and beyond official protocol. So they're going to say that they take these things very seriously, while Eddie Johnson is saying in court, no, you didn't. You put me at risk, and now my career is over. And maybe I'll touch on this on Monday, although the lifespan on this is running out quickly. Dan Walsh at the Philly Soccer page has a fascinating interview with Nick Sakevich, the CEO of the Philadelphia Union. In it, he uses third person. He claims that the GM vote for the Seattle Sounders is all for show. He talks about how he's not going to be fired. He's not going anywhere. He's Nick Sakevich. It's fascinating stuff from Union Land. Maybe we can get to that on Monday. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the games tomorrow. What was the game that we're focusing on? Oh, Liverpool Arsenal. First game in the morning tomorrow. Gonna be watching that. And then Bundesliga today. Plenty of stuff happening. Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Morning. Get us on iTunes, ratings, and reviews. And we'll talk to you guys Monday. Bye.
Back in the days on the boulevard I landed, we used to kick routines and the presence was fitting. It was I, the abstract,
and me, the 5-footer. I kicks the mad style, so step off the Frankfurter.
Yo, Fife, you remember that routine that we used to make space.